The Galactic Council's emergency translation systems crashed simultaneously across all 47 species representatives. The exact moment human diplomat Emma Johnson raised a single middle finger in response to Ambassador Zilax's 3-hour speech about humanity's intellectual inferiority. High Chancellor Kael'thas watched his primary display flicker from calm blue to violent red as error messages cascaded across every screen in the Grand Chamber. What is happening? His translator struggled with his own words, cycling through 6 languages before settling on Standard Galactic. Emma's finger remained raised. She said nothing. Her bio reading showed she was thinking about whether the embassy cafeteria was still serving those chicken wraps she liked. Security Protocol 9. Kael'thas's assistant, Vexia, slammed her appendage against the emergency panel. The human has deployed an unknown weapon. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. 20 security drones converged on Emma's position, their scanning arrays attempting to analyze the threat. One by one, they began spinning in confused circles, unable to classify what they were observing. Ambassador Zilax, who had just finished explaining in excruciating detail why humans were barely sentient resource processors unworthy of council recognition, stood frozen at the central podium. His 3 eye stalks bent toward Emma at angles that suggested extreme confusion. What is the meaning of this? Our translation matrix cannot process the gesture. Emma's lips quirked into a slight smirk. She wiggled the finger, just a little. Every translation system in the chamber exploded into a cacophony of error tones. "By the ancient codes!" Vexia shrieked, her normally calm purple complexion shifting to a distressed orange. The gesture just changed meaning. It changed meaning while remaining the same physical configuration. Kael'thas activated his emergency communication link to the Supreme Council of Ancients. "We have a code paradigm situation. The human has created an untranslatable communication. Yes, I'm aware that's supposed to be impossible. Yes, I know what impossible means." Emma checked her watch. The lunch meeting with the Terran trade delegation was in 40 minutes, and she still needed to review the agricultural export proposal. "Someone get the xenolinguistics team in here now," Kael'thas roared. His normally composed demeanor had cracked entirely. 10,000 years of council service, and he'd never seen anything like this. Within 3 minutes, 12 of the galaxy's foremost linguistic experts materialized into the chamber via emergency transport. The lead xenolinguist, a crystalline being named Jotaro, immediately began scanning Emma's gesture with 17 different analytical frameworks. "Mathematical analysis shows the gesture exists in quantum superposition," Jotaro announced, his crystalline structure flickering with confused colors. "It simultaneously means everything and nothing. This is physically impossible." "Biological assessment indicates the human's neural patterns show no stress response," another expert added, tentacles waving frantically over holographic displays. "Despite delivering what our cultural database suggests might be a severe insult, her cortisol levels are baseline. She's thinking about food." A small laugh escaped from Emma. She couldn't help it. The absurdity of 47 alien species losing their collective minds over a middle finger was too much. "The human is laughing." Zilax's voice hit frequencies that shattered 2 ornamental crystals. "This is clearly a threat display." "Actually," Emma said, finally lowering her finger and speaking for the first time, "I'm laughing because you all just spent 3 hours explaining how stupid humans are, and now you can't figure out what 1 finger means." The translation systems handled that sentence fine, which somehow made it worse. Kael'thas's communication link chimed. "Sir, we have incoming. Supreme Council of Ancients is dispatching their master translation team. ETA, 4 minutes. "Tell them to bring their best," Kael'thas muttered. though I suspect it won't matter. Emma noticed other humans in the observation gallery. Embassy staff and visiting researchers were now actively laughing. One was recording the whole thing on his phone, another was texting, probably sharing this disaster with the group chat. The aliens, meanwhile, had escalated their analysis to existential crisis levels. "I don't understand," Vexia said quietly, staring at 17 conflicting data streams. "We invented universal translation. We've cataloged 847 million distinct forms of communication across 12,000 species. How can one human gesture defeat our entire framework?" "Maybe," Emma offered helpfully, "your framework isn't as comprehensive as you thought?" The master translation team from the Vexthul civilization materialized in a flash of purple light. The Vexthul had invented universal translation 50 million years ago. Their linguistic database was considered the foundation of all galactic communication. The lead Vexthul, an ancient being whose name translated roughly as first speaker, approached Emma with reverence mixed with scientific fascination. "Human, would you perform the gesture again?" Emma shrugged and raised her middle finger. First speaker's entire body went rigid. Its 6 assistants began making sounds that the translators labeled as error, sound of existential despair. This cannot be," first speaker whispered. "Our analysis shows the gesture contains a minimum of 15 distinct meanings, all of which exist simultaneously until context is applied. But context itself is multi-layered in human communication. The gesture means different things based on relationship between communicator and receiver, cultural background, immediate situation, historical reference, tone of voice when explaining it later, facial expression, the specific finger wiggle velocity, and at least 8 other variables we're still identifying." "Sounds about right," Emma said cheerfully. "You done yet?" "I've got a lunch meeting." Jotaro's crystalline form began flickering erratically. How do you communicate at all? How does your species function when every gesture, every word, every expression exists in quantum superposition of meaning?" "Context, dude," Emma said. "We use context." "But your context requires understanding of emotional states, social hierarchies, personal history, cultural touchstones, and temporal relevance," Vexia protested. That's impossibly complex." "Is it, though?" Emma tilted her head. "You guys seriously don't have any words or gestures that mean different things depending on who's saying them or how they say it?" The entire council chamber fell silent. "Our communication is precise," Kael'thas said slowly. "A word means one thing. A gesture conveys one concept. That is how intelligent species communicate." Emma started laughing again. "Oh man. Oh man. You guys think we're primitive? Your entire communication system is literally binary. One word, one meaning. That's like programming language. That's not communication. That's data transfer." "Data transfer is communication," Zilax bellowed, though his voice had lost some conviction. "No," Emma said, walking toward the central podium where Zilax stood. "Data transfer is what computers do. Communication is what humans do. Watch this." She looked directly at Zilax and said, in the sweetest voice imaginable, "That was a wonderful speech you gave." The translators conveyed, "That was a wonderful speech you gave." "See? Same words, but literally everyone in this room who understands human communication knows I just insulted you way harder than my middle finger did." Zilax's eye stalks rotated in complete confusion. But the words said it was wonderful?" "The words said wonderful. My tone said you're an idiot. My facial expression said I'm barely tolerating you. My body language said I'm not even slightly impressed. The context of me saying this right after your 3-hour insult fest said I'm mocking you. And the cultural reference to fake politeness in human society added another layer of go fuck yourself that your translators can't touch." First speaker made a sound like a small sun dying. "We've been categorizing civilizations wrong. We've been doing it wrong for 50 million years." How do you function? Vexia asked Emma, genuine curiosity replacing her earlier panic. How do humans communicate with each other when every interaction contains this much? This much. Nuance, Emma supplied. Layers, complexity. We learn it as kids. By the time we're 5 years old, we understand sarcasm, irony, metaphor, double meanings, cultural references, and context-dependent interpretation. It's not hard. It's just communication. Kelthas sank into his ceremonial seat, looking older than his 3,000 years. We built machines to translate for us. We standardized our languages for efficiency. We made communication precise and unambiguous. And in doing so, we made it primitive, Emma finished. Yeah. You optimized the soul out of it. Jataro's crystalline form had stopped flickering. He seemed to have reached some kind of acceptance. Ambassador Johnson, would you be willing to explain exactly what your raised finger meant in response to Ambassador Zilax's speech? Sure, Emma said, leaning against the podium casually. It meant, fuck you. It meant, your speech was bullshit. It meant, I dismiss your arguments entirely. It meant, humanity doesn't care about your opinion. It meant, this is what I think of your authority. It meant, I'm not intimidated by you. It meant, you're not worth a verbal response. It meant, I'm showing cultural defiance. It meant, this is a human power move. It meant, I'm ending this conversation on my terms. And it also meant, I think this whole situation is kind of funny. She paused. It also referenced about 6,000 years of human history regarding rude gestures, tied into 3 different Earth cultural traditions, made a statement about human dignity, asserted our species' right to self-determination, and, this is the fun part, it did all of that simultaneously without me having to say a single word. The silence in the chamber was absolute. You did all that, with one finger, Zilax said weakly. Well, Emma grinned, we are a pretty efficient species when we want to be. Kael'thas activated his official recording system. Let the record show that the Galactic Council's assessment of human communication capability was fundamentally flawed. He looked at Zilax. Ambassador, I believe you owe the human delegation an apology. Zilax's eye stalks drooped. Yes. Ambassador Johnson, I apologize for my species' inaccurate assessment of human capabilities. We clearly failed to understand the complexity of your communication systems. And the 3-hour racist tirade about how stupid we are? Emma prompted. That too, especially that. Emma pulled out her phone and started typing. Cool, I'm going to need that in writing, sent to the Terran Embassy, with copies to the Human Colonial Administration and Earth's United Government. Also, you're going to vote to upgrade humanity's status from observer to full member at the next council session. That's not standard protocol for... Emma raised her middle finger again. Approved, Kael'thas nearly shouted. All in favor of human full member status. Indicate now. 47 species voted in favor, unanimously, in record time. Emma lowered her finger and smiled. Awesome. Now, anybody know where I can get decent tacos around here? I'm starving. Vexia, who had been quietly processing everything, spoke up. Ambassador Johnson, would you be willing to conduct seminars on human communication? I think we have much to learn. Sure, Emma said, checking her phone for messages. Fair warning, though, week 1 is entirely about sarcasm, and most species find it deeply disturbing. I believe, first speaker said solemnly, that we will survive the disturbance. We survived 50 million years of being wrong about communication. We can survive learning to be right. As Emma headed for the chamber exit, Kael'thas called out, Ambassador Johnson? That gesture you made. What would you have done if we had refused your demands? Emma turned, grinned, and raised both middle fingers this time. Every translation system in the chamber crashed again. I'll send someone to explain that one later, she laughed, walking out. Right now, tacos are calling. 3 hours later, Emma sat in a small Mexican restaurant 6 blocks from the council chambers, halfway through the best carne asada she'd had since leaving Earth. Her phone buzzed with a message from Kael'thas. Ambassador Johnson, our analysis teams have now identified 47 distinct meanings in your double finger gesture, and the count is still rising. How is this possible? Emma typed back, "Context, dude. It's all about context." She added a winking emoji and hit send. Back at the council chambers, the emoji crashed 3 more translation systems. Vexia stood in the emergency response center, watching error messages cascade across her displays. Around her, linguistic experts from 47 species argued about semantic layers, contextual frameworks, and the philosophical implications of communication that existed in superposition. "Ma'am," one of her assistants asked, "how do we even begin to categorize human communication in our databases?" Vexia thought about Emma's raised finger, about the layers of meaning, about the sarcasm and irony and context and cultural references all woven together in a single gesture. She thought about 50 million years of galactic civilization believing they had mastered communication. "We start," she said quietly, "by admitting we don't know anything, and we learn." The memo went out across all council channels within the hour. Urgent directive. Revised protocols for human interaction. Effective immediately, all species engaging with human representatives must complete minimum 500 hours. Cultural sensitivity training. Translation systems interfacing with human communications must include context uncertainty protocols. Humans are to be considered communication advanced, not communication primitive. The gesture incident is to be studied as a foundational case in advanced xenolinguistics. Ambassador Zilax is suspended from diplomatic duties. Pending re-education, under no circumstances should any species attempt to out-communicate a human addendum from High Chancellor Kael'thas. They've been doing this to each other for their entire evolutionary history and somehow still function as a coherent civilization. I'm not sure whether to be terrified or impressed, possibly both. Emma finished her tacos, left a generous tip, and headed back to the embassy. She had 17 messages from various council members asking questions about human communication. She had 6 interview requests from galactic news networks. She had 1 message from her mom asking if she was eating enough vegetables. She replied to her mom first, "Yes, Mom, had a salad yesterday. Love you." Then she sent a group message to all the council members. Human Communication Seminar starts next week. First lesson, why the phrase, "I'm fine," never actually means "I'm fine." Buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride. The emoji crashed 4 more systems. Emma smiled. This was going to be fun. In his office, Kael'thas stared at the official report on his desk. 1 human. 1 gesture. Complete paradigm collapse of 10,000-year-old linguistic frameworks. He thought about his own species' evolution, how they'd optimized communication for efficiency and precision, how they'd been so proud of their translation technologies. They'd mistaken simplicity for sophistication. They'd confused data transfer with connection. Humans, somehow, had kept the messy, complicated, ambiguous, beautiful complexity of real communication alive. And they did it without any technology at all, just context, culture, and an apparently inexhaustible ability to mean 17 things at once. His assistant entered. "Sir, the Supreme Council wants a full briefing on the incident." "Tell them," Kael'thas said, a smile creeping across his features for the first time in decades, "that we just learned the most important lesson in galactic history. Never underestimate a species that can start a revolution with 1 finger." "And what lesson is that, sir?" "That maybe, just maybe, the humans aren't the primitive ones after all." Emma made it back to her apartment, kicked off her shoes, and collapsed on her couch. Her roommate, another human diplomat named Sarah Jackson, looked up from her laptop. "So," Sarah said, "I heard you broke the Galactic Council today." "Just a little," Emma grinned. "With your middle finger." It was efficient. Sarah laughed. Girl, the group chat is going insane. Do you know you're trending on like 40 different alien social networks? They're calling it the finger incident. Could be worse, Emma said, pulling out her phone. Could have given them the thumbs up. That one's even more confusing. Please don't break them more. Some of us have to work with these people. No promises, Emma said, but she was smiling. Hey, you want to help me plan this communications seminar? I'm thinking week 2 should be about how sure can mean absolutely not, depending on tone. Sarah closed her laptop. You're evil. I love it. Let's destroy their entire conceptual framework of language. That's the spirit, Emma said. Somewhere in the council chambers, 47 species were frantically trying to understand how they'd gotten communication so wrong for so long, on Earth. 2. Humans planned their next lesson with the casual confidence of a species that had been doing this dance for millennia. The galaxy was learning. Humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or strength, it was nuance. And they wielded it with one finger raised high.